What is up, y'all? It is your girl, Jice, and we are back with another episode of Boss Up with BBI, where we are here talking about all things money and mindset in the Black community. So I want to invite you before we jump on into this topic today about what is best versus what is easiest and what we as a Black community need to do and how we need to navigate ourselves as individuals and as a group. Before we get into all of that, I want you to hit that like button, hit subscribe, and I want you to share this out. I get a ton of messages in my inbox with people talking about the information that they receive from this podcast and the value that they receive from the podcast. And I just want you to know how much I appreciate that. And I would also really appreciate it if you would then share the information so that your homie, your neighbor, your lover, your friend, your spouse, your kids can also get some of that information. Not your kids if they're too young. I have a potty mouth, so y'all know what it is. But the information still needs to get out there. And so I would love if y'all would go ahead and make sure that you share. Also, if you are on YouTube, hit the thumbs up button because that really helps us to help get the word out a little bit better with how these algorithms work. Y'all know how it is. So that is what you could do for me. I appreciate that. And what I am going to do for you is I'm about to bring you some information. So y'all know that I like really digging into this mindset piece with the Black community. It is so important. I think in order to change the way that we live, we have to change the way that we think. And of course, I always like to acknowledge the historical atrocities that have been, used against us for centuries. And so recognizing that people struggle to change their mindset in general, but when you have been mentally conditioned in a way that is incredibly abusive, in the way that the Black community has been, then I think it's always important, to make sure that we recognize that we have, some extra struggles and things that really take our mindset battles, make them an extra layer, take it a step deeper, take it a step further. And so I always want to acknowledge that space. I think it's important that in everything that we do, as we remember uh, everything that we do in terms of our self-improvement, that we always remember where we come from and remember our history. And I think that's a place of, at least for me, it's a place of empowerment. It's like you got here, you didn't get here on your own, but you are empowered to change it now that you recognize it, right? And so much in the change and evolution of us as a people and you as an individual really starts with bringing that awareness. And so I want to dig into that side a little bit, really thinking about some of the aspects that we need to be aware of as we begin to make these changes, because the reality of it is that our bodies and our brains are really set up against us. So have you ever had that feeling where it's like, I'm just going to use like, a workout example, right? Like I know I need to go outside and take a walk. And so, you need to do it. It's healthy for you. You know that you would feel so much better. You know that you would get, your blood moving. You know that you would start getting weight off of you. You know that, it's good for your mental clarity, right? Getting some fresh air, getting some sunshine, getting some vitamin D, right? So you can think of all the amazing and great things that would come from and that would happen if you go outside and you take this walk. And have you ever then like started reaching for your shoes or about to grab your coat, and then all of a sudden your mind starts talking you out of it? Like, well, you know what? I really am kind of tired, and I actually don't have time to do this walk because I have, this coming up and this coming up and this coming up. Oh, and it's cold outside. And my knees is kind of hurting me, and I just don't really feel like I should do that right now. So then you talk yourself out of something that ultimately is good for you. You talk yourself out of doing something that would help advance you, right? And you do that in order to put yourself at ease. So instead of doing what is best for you, you do what is easiest for you. And we can see this in so many areas and aspects of our individual lives. Maybe you come home from work or from your business, and instead of you digging into, instead of you going to the gym, or instead of you cooking a home cooked meal, or instead of you reading a book and enhancing your mind, instead of you having like really quality family time, playing games together or digging into history together or reading a book together, right? Instead of you doing those things, instead of you spending time with your spouse or your loved one, instead of you, talking to your family in a really constructive way, maybe what you do is you come home and you sit on a couch and you watch TV or Netflix or whatever, right? Maybe you take naps, right? Maybe you come home and instead of you cooking a home cooked meal, you dig into the snack jar. So I mean, the examples are endless. It could go on and on and on. We could talk about all the areas and all the places where we tend to do the thing that is easiest for us to do, not necessarily, not specifically the things that are best, even when we know what's the best thing. So these are just examples that I'm giving you of how you can know what you need to do, but your body and your brain are literally acting against your best will, your best chance. They're acting against what's good for you. And this not only happens with us as individuals, this really also happens with us as a people because it's happening to us individually. So because we don't want to take the time to dig into which candidates are best, what laws and policies are being put in place. We don't want to get away from mainstream news media and find actual reports or data or research. We don't want to spend time actually building our businesses. We don't want to put time into, creating and living by a budget. We don't want to do these things. We don't. As a people, as individuals, and then collectively as a people, we don't get into doing these things. And so what happens is that as a people, we choose instant gratification, which is a very short-term type of system, over being a little bit more uncomfortable, and then therefore getting our gratification or getting the benefits in the long term, right? In the long run. So if you think about it again, and I like to use diet and exercise types of deals because I think people can get it really easily, but think about it like this. If you come home and you see that cookie, that's short-term gratification. But over the long term, it really is detrimental. So you eat a cookie every day, you eat a cookie every day, you eat a cookie every day, you get fatter, you get fatter, you get fatter. Your body is ingesting more and more sugar. It's not healthy for you. You develop diabetes. You develop heart problems. You become obese. That causes problems with your joints and shortness of breath. And now maybe you have struggle sleeping. Maybe you develop sleep apnea, because of the weight on your chest or whatever, right? So it's like but in the moment, that cookie was good. It tastes good to you and you want that. So that is an example of instant gratification in the short term that really truly causes long-term damage, like big time, right? And then, in the other sense, when you go through that uncomfortable period, right? So now you're obese and now, you're unhealthy and all these things. So now you're going to start the workout process. So now you've got to go to the gym. You've got to start moving your joints and your muscles, and it doesn't feel good, right? I mean, the extra weight is causing pressure on your joints, so now they're hurting. When you run, you're short of breath. When you finish working out, your muscles are sore, they're tired, right? So you don't feel good. And in addition to that, you now have to keep passing up this cookie. So like mentally, you're hangry, right? Like you're pissed. This is not what you want to be doing right now, right? So it's like, there's a lot of these places of stress and emotion. And so from a logical standpoint, you can acknowledge, okay, this really sucks, but I know what I'm working towards. I know where I'm going with this. I know that, in time, I'm going to drop the weight. I know that me dropping the weight is going to help my sleep, is going to help my shortness of breath, is going to help my joints. I know that, as long as I continue to exercise, I'm going to be releasing all these endorphins, and then these endorphins are going to make me feel better mentally. I know that my muscles are not always going to feel this sore. They're going to adjust. They're going to stretch. They're going to build. Matter of fact, they're going to feel really good. And then in 6 months or a year or 2 years, my body is going to be banging. I'm going to be out there, Stella got her groove back, I'm going to be out here doing the most, right? So we understand from a logical standpoint that this current level of uncomfortability really brings a long-term place and space where we will be good, where the gratification is more permanent, it's more long-standing, and it feels good to us, right? So what we have to do is we have to break through the current uncomfortability. We have to hold on long enough in order for us to get to the long-term benefits. That is a place where we struggle, not only as individuals, but again, I'm going to emphasize that is a place where we struggle as a people, as a people. And so this has to come from a place and a space of mindset and how we train our minds to endure short-term uncomfortability for long-term results, to forego short-term instant gratification opportunities for long-term success. And these are things that can be built into a culture. You can build a culture of discipline. The Japanese is an amazing example of a people who have built discipline inside of their culture. And so you can see, even at very young ages, where you have children who have learned to clean immaculately, who learn to sit still, who learn to do, recite things, memorize things. They, have certain credos and places and spaces that they live that are very disciplined. And these things are essentially bred into their culture and are part of their value system that get enacted out on a day-to-day basis, basically across the board. So then anyone who's not participating in that becomes the outlier, and everyone who is participating inside of that system is the norm, right? And so what often happens inside of our communities, it's the opposite, is that, the majority of us are going home and watching TV every day. So when you find someone who's going home and they're picking up a book, they're the outlier. They're not the norm. And so we know this because we can assess some of our spending habits. We can assess some of our entertainment habits. We can assess our TV habits. Like, we watch the most TV. We do. We watch the most TV. Look up the studies, right? We are struggling from all these different health issues that America's unhealthy, period, right? And this is something that we always have to remember. When America has a cold, like, if you are Black, you got the flu or the coronavirus. Like, we always get it way worse. So if there's anything that white America is struggling with, Black America is struggling with it more. And that is certainly the case when it comes to our budgets, our finances, our spending, when it comes to the intake of entertainment. And so that's a place that I have really struggled with, is how do we get our people away from having to always be entertained, right? I come on here and I tell you guys all the time, like, we're finna talk about this, and this is just not a sexy topic, right? It's not one of those topics that's wildly entertaining. It is a topic that you have to think about, that you have to dig into. It's something that you have to plug into in order for it to benefit you, and that you have to apply to your life. So they're rarely the sexy topics. We're talking about money, and we're talking about mindset. It's always fun to talk about how to get money until you really get into the root of how to get money. Because the people who you see who are successful, who are getting all this money, are people who are by and large doing the same thing every day, day in and day out. You just don't see it. They feel like they're overnight successes to you, but the reality is they've been doing the same thing over and over and over. You know what I'm saying? They're making the sales calls every day. They're up in the office early. They're over in the office late. They are running all the appointments. They are doing all the follow-up emails. They are, getting all of their deliverables together. They are doing it consistently over and over and over and over and over again. If they are, speaking somewhere, they're preparing PowerPoint slides, and they're practicing and they're rehearsing. And while you're going out to go have a drink, they're still in their office and they're digging in and they're working on their next proposal. And so when you see them as being the success, you are negating and forgetting about all the time and the work and the boring ass shit that they did over and over and over and over. The uncomfortable times for the long-term success while you went out and had the instant gratification, while you went out to have the drink, they were in there uncomfortable, working late night, staying up, trying to drink some coffee to keep themselves going, and all of that, right? So it's always interesting to me when we don't acknowledge those things, but we can build a culture of discipline inside of our community if we can begin to break away from some of those entertainment spaces. And so I see this inside of not only like where we stand in healthcare, but also in education, right? So when we talk about building our schools or even taking over our schools, it takes the extra dedication and the extra effort in order for us to begin to assess what our children are being taught and then work to change that system. One of the things, like I literally, so I homeschool, right? But I'm looking forward to the day that I don't have to homeschool. There are schools popping up all around. I am watching. There is Vision Performing Arts. There's the Discovery School in Denver. There's Warrior Nation. I feel like there's another one. There's an Empower High School that popped up. That's one that I'm really interested in getting my daughter into. We live kind of far away from it right now. We live really far away from it right now, like 40 minutes away from it right now in no traffic. So I don't see us going there just yet, but I'm trying to get there, right? Like if I can get my daughter into one of these schools that would do what it needs to do because they are changing the model of learning for our children and a model that suits our children, I would stop homeschooling and I would put my kid there. The issue is that we keep putting our kids inside of these schools and inside of these classrooms that with teachers who don't look like us in a system that's not there to benefit us, and we're not being diligent long enough as a whole to change the system. So you have these individual pop-ups that are happening because you have someone's dedication to making change, but these are not holistic systemic, changes, right? Same thing in our politics. This is not going to be the easy way is to just vote Democrat, party line like we always do. It doesn't matter who's in. I can tell you what, if Joe Biden is the nominee, I'm not voting for him. I'm gonna just say that out loud. I don't care if he's the Democratic nominee or not, and if it's Biden versus Trump, because it's really, I'm not gonna say that Joe Biden is like blatantly racist. Like I don't think Joe Biden is consciously racist, right? But that's part of the problem is that when you are a problem and you don't realize that you're a problem, when you're a part of the problem and you think you're part of the solution, that's a problem. And then when you're so tone deaf that you don't even want to hear that you're part of the problem, that is also a problem. So like I'm not gonna, it's the vote for the lesser of evil two, lesser of two evils. I'm not gonna do that, right? Those are the hard choices. Those are the hard choices. How do we break out of a two-party system that we know unequivocally does not work for us? Do we keep doing what's easiest because of scare tactics? Oh my God, what if Donald Trump is in office for another 4 years? Well, I don't know. What's happened to you in these last four? Like really, truly, outside of you being outraged at how many white racists that you are actually around on a regular basis, like, but now because they're Donald Trump supporters, like now what you maybe didn't know or maybe you suspected, but you let it slide. Like now right? What has happened to you under Donald Trump right now? Truly, what has happened to you? Like really, really happened to you that wasn't already in some shape or form happening regardless. So how do we break out of a two-party system if we're not going to choose what's best for us and we just go with what's easiest for us? And predominantly we go with what's easiest for us out of scare tactics. How do we do that? How do we change that system? How do we do that in business? How do we do that in ownership? It's difficult to own. So I have literally had someone tell me that they don't want to own a house because while they are in their apartment, they have access to people coming to cut their grass. They don't have to worry about plumbing and electrical work because if there's a problem inside their apartment, they're just going to call maintenance and then maintenance is going to come. So what they're going to do is they're going to do what's easiest. They're going to continue to rent and pay for someone else's equity and pay for someone else's ownership at the cost of their ease instead of doing what's best and beginning to build and amass wealth. That's a real conversation that I had. So, what I really want to encourage you today, is I want to encourage you to begin thinking literally about all of your choices. Ask yourself, what is your end goal? This is kind of some of the places where, like, some of the coaching that I do comes into play here. When you coach with me, the first thing that I discuss and I get real big on is clarity of where you're going, right? And I think that's one of the things that we struggle with as a people. A lot has been talked about around Black agendas. There is, I was on a Black agenda tour, which was more like a personal agenda, like how you have an agenda within yourself and how you can create solutions individually, right? And then we have like other organizations that have created the black agenda. So of course you have like in Cobra, which I haven't seen a lot of action from, but then ADOS has been like wildly huge lately. You also have the National Business League. They have a Black agenda rolling out. There's Black agendas that are posted all over, right? But there isn't like a really solid Black agenda that our entire community, by and large, like the vast majority of our community, has gotten behind and then is pushing. So it's difficult for us to figure out where we're going as a people because we are not on the same page as where we're going. So then how do we create values? And then how do we determine what's best in that situation in order for us to get there? So, one of the things that I do when I'm coaching is like, okay, well, first we have to come to a place where we're really clear about what it is that you want so that we know how to make decisions on what is best, meaning what decision is actually going to move me closer to this goal that I stated that I want. That's like thing number one. When you don't have clarity, then you cannot begin to make decisions based off of what's best. So your natural default or inclination is to go with what's easiest, right? And so as a community, as a people, we have to get to a place where we are recognizing what we need to do as a community in order for us to be free. In order for us to be free, it's going to require us doing what's best and not what's easiest. I always like to look at that in the terms of like the flow of a river, right? So you're just going with the flow of the river, you're going wherever, but the river is never leading us to anywhere that we as a community need to be, right? We keep trying to get to this American dream. The American dream don't work for white people. It definitely is not working for us. They have a cold, we have pneumonia. We finna die. And I'm really not playing. All the statistics are pointing to that. Our health outcomes are getting worse. Our educational outcomes are getting worse. Our wealth gap is getting worse. Our pay gaps are not getting any better. Like things are not getting better. Social media really convolutes that situation because you see people and they look like they live in their best life, but the statistics are saying different. I can't wait for the census to come out to have a new set of data to really see like where we are. But by and large, most of the research that is coming out, that has been coming out over the last decade, is saying that things are actually getting worse. Outcomes are getting worse. They're not getting better despite all the awareness. And that's because despite all the awareness, as let me go full circle all the way back to my initial examples, right? You can know everything you need to do, and your brain and your body are going to talk you out of it. So if you are not recognizing, and that's where it comes again, you have to come to a place of awareness, because awareness is the first place where you can battle between your mind and your actions. You don't have to do everything that you think. Did you know that? Did you know that? I'm saying that kind of facetiously, but then like I'm really not. Like some people are like, well, that's how I felt. But guess what, boo? You have a choice. You do not have to behave based off of how you feel. It's easier to behave based off of how you feel. But you have a conscious choice to say, I feel like this and I'm going to do this, right? Have you ever been in a relationship and you know this relationship ain't good for you and you're like, I don't want to do this? My mind is telling me no, but my body is telling me yes, right? I ain't gonna sing it, but y'all know what I'm saying? You have the ability to think one way and do something different. But that starts with the awareness that you have that duality of choice, right? And then you have to actually execute on that choice. And every time that you make the decision to do what's best versus what's easiest, you move yourself one step closer to your goal. If we as a people can begin to embody a value system of doing what's best versus what's easier, we will move closer to our goals. We do have to define what those goals are. So, those are some of the places that I continue to look forward to working in, is with other thought leaders inside of the Black community around how we formulate and create a shared agenda so that our community can have a goal in mind that is by and large accepted by us, so that we can begin to make the decisions to do what's best versus what's easiest. So my hope for you as I close out is that you begin to think about what's best instead of what's just easiest, that you begin to instill that not only in your own life, but in your children's lives, and that you instill that in some of the people that are going to be around you. Be a leader in your own space. Be a leader in this in the space of being able to show people by example what it looks like for you to make the hard decisions, knowing that the outcome down the line is going to be what's better for you, so that we can begin to shift that as a value system inside of our community. So that's all I got for y'all today. Y'all make sure that you hit that subscribe button. This is CTN Media. This is another episode of Boss Up with BBI. And don't forget, you can always do things like get signed up with our newsletter in order to stay up to date with what's going on with us. Make sure that you are subscribed to our social media. That is at BBI Professional. And you can subscribe to me personally at Jice Johnson on Facebook and on Instagram. I am kind of sort of a little bit on Twitter, but I'm not going to lie. Y'all's not really going to get me on Twitter. But you can get me on Instagram and you can get me on Facebook. And I want to make sure that you guys know that if you are interested in coaching with me, if you are interested in working with me individually, you can hit me up, Jice at BBIProfessional.com. You can hit me up and I will send you some information on my Grind with Jice program. And you can also connect with me on my Patreon. So all of those links are in the description box. So again, make sure that you hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell so that you can know when we have another episode or more things coming out. Y'all must have noticed that there are other things that are on our channel over on YouTube. So there are interviews that are coming out with Shay J now, and you can check those out. Those are pretty dope. And so make sure that you hit the subscribe button. Make sure you hit the thumbs up button. So help us get the word out, help us share. And that is all I got for y'all. So I will be back next week with another episode of Boss Up with BBI. That is it, y'all. Peace.